You had asked us about our movement at Justified Anger. So the nonprofit that I lead is called Nehemiah, and it's about 28 years old. And it was really created to provide support and build capacity in African-American families. In Madison, the Black community pretty much doubled from 1980 to 1990. But we didn't see that representation in supportive services, teachers, principals, managers, executives. And so we created a nonprofit that other organizations subcontracted to do social services into the Black community. About 20 years later, we started to realize that we're a leadership development institution because folks who we used to serve have now become our staff, and they help us to reach out to the community. A few years beyond that, we realized that our work is not just about building capacity in African Americans, but it really is about challenging oppressive systems, because just strengthening people and they keep bumping into the same wall is not helpful. That's like trying to put someone through a job training program for an obsolete job or career. Why continue to train people to do shorthand and no one does that anymore? Yeah. We have apps that can do that for us. And so we started challenging the systems. And so I wrote an article, it was an op-ed piece called Justified Anger, front page story, 3,000 words, and it got like 7,000 shares. It went wild. People started calling me from around the country, national news outlets wanting to interview me and talk to me about race relations in Madison. But then the question came, well, what do you want to do? You complain, so you should fix it, because it's our problem to fix. We created it. We must fix it. We're bothered by it. Everyone else is okay. But what we realized is that we had not built allyship among non-Blacks, mainly whites, but we have not built allyship so that when people are in boardrooms, meeting rooms, teachers, associations, whatever the sphere of influence may be, and then noticing that it is very monolithic, very homogenous, we wanted to empower them to open their mouths and say, wait a minute, this isn't right. And wait a minute, why is this okay with everyone? And why hasn't anybody said anything? And I know some people that can help us diversify this. I wanted to empower them. So we've done that through the U.S. Black History course. We've now taken 1,000 people, more than 1,000 people through this process. But the idea is to help them to understand America. They come to the class thinking they're going to learn about Black people and what was done to me and what was done to my folks. No, they find out the truth about America, the truth about American Christianity, the truth about institutions, and how free labor made America a world power that comes with resources and benefits of which we've been shut out. And even if you didn't have a slave, if you rode the rail or you worked for the shipyard or you made barrels or you worked for a bank securing slave ships, or an insurance company, you're insuring them, or banks collecting the money, you were all part of the system, whether you liked it or not, whether you wanted to or not. That reality has really opened the minds of a lot of our white allies, because they did not learn history that way. They did not understand systemic oppression. And so that understanding has now helped them to do things to be part of a difference. So for example, there are a group of people who are interested in criminal justice and mass incarceration that, and I know that's very dear to your heart, among other things. So we have created a court advocacy program. Right now it's more like a court observer program, but basically we have about 30 people who sit in the courts, and we have a standardized form to see what takes place inside the courtroom and if it's fair. We have the most comprehensive snapshot of court proceedings as a non-court entity of anyone else in this community. We have observed probably 500 court cases. And so the white observers, they're all white, they've come back to us and said, the demons are subject to us in your name. They're coming back, kind of like when the disciples came back from Jesus amazed. They said, Black and brown people are treated differently in the court systems? Now, we knew, but to see that with their own eyes was a very significant. When you fast forward, 4 of those judges went through our U.S. A 9-week, 4 judges went through it. One judge let me do a ride along with her on her bench. She just became the newest Supreme Court justice for the state of Wisconsin. And she went through our history class. And she told me that that class causes her to think differently about her bench every day. And now she's a Supreme Court justice. So it's just an example. I was a little long-winded there. Sorry about that. But it's just an example of how building relationships and trust, giving people history, and then giving them the space and the tools to rethink things themselves. Because I can tell people all day that there's a fair judicial system. But if I have judges who think they're good, but their thinking is shaped in the old boys club, and whether that's men or women, old white people's club, they can't really be helpful and supportive. So they're deconstructing their own thinking, which is creating greater justice in their own courtroom. And that just changes my heart. So in about a year, that's going to morph into a court advocacy program so that people in our programs, African Americans going to court, can actually have someone who's not illegal. These are not lawyers, but someone who can sit with them, who understands the process, and just provide some accountability. We can't wait for the program to morph into that piece. This is free of charge. We have 30 people in 500 cases.